Welcome back to another episode of Exposing D&D 5e Monsters with me, Andrew. On today's episode, we're going to be looking at the Lich. We're taking a small departure from the standard of looking at monsters that may have had the most views or the most likes on my channel, and then today, I'd like to take a step back and look at the Lich again one more time. I've already looked at it in a live stream, I believe, and also as a shorts, and now I just want to give it the fine-tuning and closer look that I give these monsters sometimes, since I'm not rushed with the live streaming or having to just give the most minute details for the shorts. And with that, let's jump right into the base stats of the Lich. Now our Lich has 17 AC, is a medium undead with 18 d8 hit dice and a constitution score of 16. We don't really need to worry about wisdom and charisma here, and we'll just throw in that this should be a CR 21 undead. Next, we'll move down into the skills area for our monster, and we see first that we have saving throws of Constitution, Intelligence, and Wisdom for 3 saves, which will end up giving the Lich a +2 effective AC bonus. And then moving down past skills, since we technically don't need it, we'll see that with damage resistances, we have Cold, Lightning, and Necrotic, and damage immunities to Poison, Bludgeoning, Piercing, and Slashing from non-magical attacks. So the Lich will end up getting a +25% bonus in hit points due to the damage immunities that it has, although at this point, players should have magical weapons to deal with this kind of monster, and in fact, the Lich will get really no bonus at all. After that, we don't care about what's left in the skill section, and we'll skip right down into the monster traits, starting with Legendary Resistance. Legendary Resistance of 3 uses per day will give the Lich an extra 90 hit points effectively, and that's about all we can get from that. Moving on, we'll also have Rejuvenation, which just allows the Lich to move back to its phylactery and come back within 1d10 days, 5 on average, to come back and really haunt your players if they've died once already. So, if the Lich has died and the phylactery is in a secure place, it's probably okay if the Lich does die a little too often. Hopefully the players haven't found the phylactery. Moving on, we're going to skip past spellcasting for just a moment and take a look at turn resistance. This just gives the Lich advantage on being turned from such abilities that clerics may have, and really gives no effect to the Lich whatsoever. So let's take a step back and look at its spellcasting. Now, the Lich can do a bunch of things with its spells, and I've already taken the time to work out its spells here on this secondary chart that I have. And the Lich has a whole list of different things that it can do between direct damage and AoE spells, and also spells that it can concentrate and use as reactions. Now the biggest one here is going to be Shield. So I'm going to go back to the chart and add in Shield to give our Lich a little bit of a bonus in extra AC. Beyond that, the Lich also has regular invisibility, Cloud Kill, Globe of Invulnerability, and Dominate Person. Now, Globe of Invulnerability may help in some cases, but to get the most amount out of the Lich and the concentration spells that it has, I'm going to be using Cloud Kill here. Invisibility is regular and it can't attack on its actions, and once it attacks after being invisible, it loses the invis anyways. We're not going to bother looking at that. Globe of Invulnerability may be a linchpin for the Lich, considering that any spells of 5th level or lower cast from outside the barrier can't affect creatures or objects within it. This may be similar to limited magic immunities like the Rakshasa has. So, for the time being, we're not going to use Globe of Invulnerability because this one is a little wonky and it may disrupt the CR for our Lich entirely. So we're going to focus on Cloud Kill for the majority of the damage here. And right off the bat, we're going to be doing the most damage we can with this Lich. And the first thing we would use is Cloud Kill at spell level 9. And we can see that here in the chart as we bring Cloud Kill all the way down to spell level 9. Now we get one use out of this, and that could be problematic if we wanted to use Power Word Kill or Power Word Stun or whatever. But to get the most damage out of the Lich, you would want to use Cloud Kill at the highest level it can be done at. And then, provided that you can put it in a really good spot, the Lich can then concentrate on it and use it in rounds 2 and 3 as well, adding in a whole bunch of extra damage as we can see here by 135. Now after that, on rounds 2 and 3, I used the Disintegrate spell at spell levels 8 and 7 to get us these 96 and 85 points of damage. Now the extra damage here is coming from the legendary actions, which we will look at in a moment. But that's pretty much it for the spellcasting for the Lich. So looking at the actions now that our Lich can do, they only have Paralyzing Touch, which will deal on average 10 points of cold damage, as well as possibly paralyzing the monster. Now paralyzing being a condition and it's all or nothing doesn't get taken into effect, unfortunately. So the Paralyzing Touch is only counted for the damage you can do. Now moving down into the legendary actions, this is where we get some interesting things. For legendary action number 1, we have cantrips, and the Lich can cast a cantrip. Well, the best cantrip it can cast to keep up with damage is Ray of Frost, at its highest amount of damage at 18. And if we do that every 3 uses of it for the one round of combat, we'll end up with 54 points of damage for 3 Rays of Frost on top of using the other spells as well. After that, we have Paralyzing Touch, which will just be the 10.5 points of damage plus 2 uses of Ray of Frost, giving us only a total of roughly 28 points of damage. So much less, and I wouldn't count that in. Legendary action number 3 is Frightening Gaze. And unfortunately, at CR 21, frightening the players is a good use, but it technically should be giving 25 bonus hit points, but it doesn't. And sadly, we won't be using that either. And because Frightening Gaze uses 2 actions, we then only get 1 more use left for that turn, and we would use the cantrip of Ray of Frost again. That's where the 18 comes from for that one. And then lastly, we have legendary action number 4, Disrupt Life. Now this is a good one. This is a close second to 3 Rays of Frost, surprisingly enough, and could be beneficial depending on how you're rolling at the table. With an average of 42 damage for 2 players failing the saves or upwards of 4 players passing the save, we would roughly end up with about 42 points of damage. So if we come back to the tool and we input 195 points of damage on average, we also need to take into effect probably either the DC checks for the spellcasting or even the 2-hit. And luckily the 2-hit is both 12 for spellcasting and for the Paralyzing Touch. So let's see what happens if we get a 12 here for the Rays of Frost. That moves us up into a CR 20 overall for our Lich. But what happens if we use the spell saves instead? Well, if we come over here and switch that from 12 to 20 for its DC checks, we still get a CR 20. But here's the problem. As some of you may be saying already, the Lich is supposed to be a CR 21. Right, this is an overrated monster. What could we do to make it not overrated? Give it a few more hit dice. Let's just double the hit points and see what happens. We'll take the 18 and throw in 36. Now we have a CR 24 Lich, something a little more deadly. And this is what we would primarily expect from that as well. Well, let's not double the hit points, and let's just try and hit the CR 21. Well, usually the best bet would say, throw in 2 more hit dice on average and see what you get. So let's see, we'll move it from 18 to 20. This will move it up to 150 points plus the effective bonuses to 277. This is where we get our CR 21 for the Lich. We just throw in 2 more hit dice, which equals out to what, 9 extra hit points for its base hit points. And there you go. Now let's take another step back and double the hit points again to 36, but remove the immunities, because more than likely our players are going to have magical weapons to bypass the immunities there. So we'll go back to 36, remove immunities, and we'll see that we have a CR 23 Lich instead. That ends up with 270 base hit points and an additional 90 hit points from the legendary resistances, giving us an effective hit points of 360. Resetting the Lich back to immunities and its 18 hit dice like normal, we have a CR 20. If you want to get it to a CR 21 with a quick fix, give it 2 more hit dice, bump it up from 135 base hit points to 150 base hit points, and now we have a CR 21 Lich. That's the Lich in a nutshell. That's how you fix it, and then we get the overrated Lich from CR 20 to up to 21. But you have to remember to use the shield every round of combat that it's being attacked, because it more than likely will be constantly attacked. Now that we have our Lich's CR figured out, and easily can use it as a CR 21, how could we use this as an epic encounter? probably not recommended unless the phylactery is safe, we could start using the Lich against 4 characters at 19th level, 5 characters at 18th level, or roughly 6 characters at 16th level, probably even 17th or lower depending on how well geared your players are. Moving on, how could we use the Lich with multiple monsters? That one's tricky, because the chart stops at 20, and it also stops at 20th level for players. So technically, if we were to extrapolate this a little further up, we could say 6 players against 1 Lich at probably 21st level. And finally, how would I use the Lich in combat? Well, it is a pure glass cannon. Keep it in the back, position it in a way that protects it as best as possible, and put in some kind of guardians to keep the players occupied while it's in the back, slinging rays of frost, fireballs, disintegration rays, and cloud kills. But beyond that, make sure there are tanks in the monsters group to help protect the Lich. This is exactly what this monster needs. And that is our Lich, an overrated CR20 with a quick fix to CR21. You've been oh so awesome if you've made it this far, and this is me, Andrew, hoping that all your encounters are even rated.